everybody. Welcome to our live today. Spencer Dent, it's a pleasure to see you. And everybody who's on today, you're in for a awesome treat. So, Spencer, I'll share a little bit. We don't know each other that well. We have met a few months ago where we were doing a panel for the CMO Alliance in New York, and you truly impressed me. First of all, I think you're a cool dude and we could be friends. Secondly, I love what you do. So I'll give like 30,000 feet and then I'll give it to you. So what Spencer does, it helps C-suite people, it helps leaders understand why we close or not close sales. Sounds kind of interesting, right? We should know. But the truth of the matter is, and Spencer's going to educate us a lot, is a lot of times we don't know. Sometimes our own people don't know why they close or don't close. And sometimes humans don't really share the real reasons. So LinkedIn Live, without further ado, I want to welcome Spencer Dent. Spencer, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your amazing company.
Thanks, Zeev. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I'm surprised that you liked that. I impressed you that much because I felt like I was off that day. It's good to good to reconnect here. So it's a super interesting conversation we had a few months ago in New York about artificial intelligence. And I think the part that you and I connected on the most is the fact that oftentimes when people talk about that topic, it's one of those topics that is so intriguing because of the perceived potential. But most of the time when people talk about AI, it's not precise enough about what they actually mean. So excited to walk through kind of what that means in our business. But quick overview of Clozd, our company Clozd, Clozd. We've been around about 7 years. We solve a really obvious problem. And usually the most value problems to solve for a business are the most obvious problems to solve, but they're very difficult to solve. And the problem we solve is we help you figure out why you win and lose sales opportunities. It's really simple, right? B2B sales are like a poker game where no one ever has to show their cards. You go through a sales process and you're always kind of holding back, or you're just wading through the uncertainty of the sales process of what you really need or what's really happening. And then you get to the end and I did or didn't choose you. And I never actually have to articulate why I did that. So the use case of Clozd, or what we do, is we help companies systematically go do that, go figure out why they win and lose deals. We plug into your CRM. There's a whole bunch of back end. What makes this process difficult is all the back end workflows of figuring out who to reach out to, how to reach out to them, what way to collect feedback. Should you do it through a live interview or should you do it through a video-based interview or a survey? And that kind of depends on what your business looks like. We go collect that feedback, we analyze it, and this is where AI really comes in as super interesting because you have all this qualitative information. How do you sift through it to make sense of it? And then most importantly, you have to put the insights back into the hands of people in your organization that can do something about it. Too often, win-loss analysis is not a drop-down in your CRM. And if, to your point in introducing me, right, asking your sales reps to self-report on why they win and lose opportunities is a futile exercise. It is not worth your time. It is definitely not worth their time. And the reason why is you're asking them to give you information that they don't know the answer to, that most of the time the clients don't tell them. And here's a startling stat I'll give you. We pull your CRM data before we start this go get the feedback process. So I actually have what your rep in our platform, we actually will have what your rep said. Then we'll go out and we'll ask the buyers what they did and why they did it. And when you compare back what the rep said with what the buyer actually told us on a lost deal in particular, 85% of the time, it's wrong.
Wow. So again, let's repeat that. So on lost deals, your experience tells you that, let's say I have a salesperson, okay, and that salesperson goes and works this deal for 3 months, and then we mark it lost. And then that salesperson, right, it was lost because the other competitor had a cheaper product, okay? So your experience says that 85% of those reasoning are wrong.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. And here's the thing. There's a lot of reasons why. Sometimes the immediate thing people do is they blame the rep. Like, well, the reps are lying, the reps are full of crap. Well, sometimes it's actually your fault or whoever the person that designed this fault, because they have the reasons that they put in there. make no sense, right? I'll give you an example. If think of the drop down in your CRM, and the first thing on there is buyer went dark on us. Well, that's not why you lost the deal. That's what happened. That was kind of the outcome, but you don't know why they went dark. So you end up like choosing, or we lost it to a competitor. That's an outcome, not a reason of what they did. So there's a lot of like broken logic in the way companies conduct this process, and that leads to broken outcomes. And I can't tell you the number of companies that have gone through this process and they're like, we don't trust anything in our CRM. And I'll give you another stat. So 85% of the time you're wrong on why you lost. 65% of the time, and this isn't just like made up, this is based off of tens of thousands of deals that we've collected data on and gone and back and compared. 65% of the time, who the buyer told us was the primary competitor versus who the rep put is wrong.
Wow.
And why does that happen? Well, because the reps don't update it, because the reps don't know, because you force the reps at the very beginning of the sales process to put a competitor in when they don't know. So you force them to guess. But when you combine those two data points, like that's scary.
It's scary. We operate on no knowledge. Now, I'll tell you why you impressed me, even though I don't think you're off that day. You impressed me because on the panel that I led the panel and you were one of the panelists, you were the only one that even slightly understood AI. So you were the only one that I could really converse with about AI. The second thing is I am a military product, okay? And in the military, debriefing is crucial, okay? If you don't debrief, it costs lives. All right. So I was impressed by you because you do how I think processes should happen. We need to debrief. If we don't debrief and investigate, we can't grow and learn. That means we'll do the same mistakes. And what you just said, 85%, 65% averages out at 75% of your data that you're based on for your growth is wrong. Yeah. How can we win with 75% of wrong data? No matter how good you are, you're going to lose if you're based on that. So that's why I really liked what Clozd and what you kind of represent, because to me, if you operate on wrong data, you're going to fall on your face.
Yeah. It's the sports analogy too, right? It's like one of our clients, we were doing a case study with them. This person is a head of RevOps for a pretty large tech company. And he said, Clozd is like the game film for us if we're a sports team. We go out, and when we win, there's highlights and there's lowlights when we win. And when we lose, there's lowlights and highlights. And the way we get a balanced view is by engaging buyers to figure out why we did what we did. And going back to what I said, like initially, it is a very obvious thing. It's like the most obvious thing that you should do, but it is hard because it requires not just putting systems and process and investment in place to do it. It also hurts your feelings. It does hurt your feelings when someone comes back to you and says, your product looks like it was built in a garage in 1985, you know, or they say your sales rep was a jerk and didn't listen to me, or your pricing model, your competitors are they followed up with me faster. They were more on top of it. And that really hurts on the losses. And you even get sometimes like some constructive feedback on the wins. At the same time, people always focus on that side of it can hurt. It can also be, if you have the right humility, that can be incredibly refining as a business to help you hear from the buyers. It's visceral and powerful to get you to go act. The other side of the coin that people don't always get, Zev, is this. It's also like the most awesome feedback you get in your organization. It's not just, everybody has like a Slack win channel or something like that, where everybody comes in and pats themselves on the back of like, great job, and they recognize some other people. But what is most powerful is to have a buyer who evaluated your solution and went through the process, and you actually can hear their voice say, this sales rep listened to me and understood what I needed, and I trusted them, right? Or I worked with your company before and I had such an incredible experience that I had to run this process, but it was really no doubt that I was going to choose you. Or your product, your solution is just so far ahead that, I got some pushback on the difference in pricing because you guys are more expensive. But once I was able to show how much more I would get, my CFO was more than willing to approve it. Those are all the types of things that like are awesome that you get to celebrate too when you do win-loss and do it the right way.
You get so much information, but you're absolutely right, because I run a lot of things, but one thing we do a lot and we actually get a lot of success in is SEO. Now, the way that I get SEO business is by auditing SEOs of people I don't do business with, right? And we've been doing this for 20 years, and now we have AI tools that do it that give amazing results. But I meet with CMOs all the time. And every time I meet with a CMO, I have like a run of like what they were doing. And sometimes the moment you show it to the CMO, you just hurt their feelings. You're just telling them you're not doing your job correctly. And if that CMO is not confident enough, that will end it right there, because now they need to protect and defend themselves. Exactly the same with what you're doing. You're showing the sides. Sometimes are ugly, sometimes are pretty, but nobody's aware of. And if you're showing something ugly that's not aware, that can cause some bad emotions, that can cause some anger, that can cause some, things within the organization. But it's the only way to grow.
And this is what great companies do. Great companies look for ways to optimize the business. And one of my favorite interactions I've ever had with any of our customers. He was one of our very first customers. He was part of a SaaS company that at the time when we first started talking to them was maybe at close to $100 million in revenue, was growing, but they needed to figure out how to continue to go up market. And they had some really aggressive low end competitors that were coming into the space and chipping away at their share and figuring out ways to rip business away from them. And he came in, he was an early adopter of win-loss, because 7 years ago when we started this, probably like 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 companies were actually doing buyer-based programs. Everybody was still kind of in the, I should talk to my sales rep. Now that's flipped significantly, and more companies, I'd say the majority of companies now, are trying to do something that's buyer-based. But this gentleman who was at this company for several years, went through an IPO, super successful company, and certainly Clozd does not deserve the credit for the hard work and awesome, input from all the people at that company. But in talking to him, he said to me, this has been foundational in helping us grow, because we've been able to change our product. We've been able to change our go-to-market, change our messaging, adapt our pricing, figure out how to win in the international markets, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, but why were you able to do that? And he said, bringing this full circle, it's because in order to be successful with this, you just have to have a spirit of humility. I know that we aren't perfect, and I want to see where we do well and where we don't do well, so I can build on my strengths and address my weaknesses. And culturally, as a business, you have to have, if you have that as a business, it doesn't matter if you're doing win-loss or anything else, you will thrive and continue to grow. But to your point, if I show you something that is like an opportunity for you to improve and you try to explain it away, you might want to watch out culturally. Like at the same time, as an outside looking in person, into your business, I don't have all the context. So let me tell you what buyers are saying, and you can choose whether or not you want to do anything about that. Because in some cases, the buyers might have the wrong perception or whatever.
You just got to remove your ego from it. Like there's so much to learn. You got to remove your ego from it. And the data that you're collecting is just data. That's all it is, and you just need to use it effectively. I actually have a surprise. We're going to bring on Daniel. Daniel is my head of sales. And I wanted, I wanted him to really talk to you, because we do so much. Okay. We sell, AI and SEO and emerging experiences and immersive experiences and all these things. And Daniel has a team and he reaches out to so many people and his targets are so different. And I would love, for Daniel to ask you some questions about how you can make the process for someone like Daniel that has so many different things that he's working on. And it's hard to understand everyone to the nitty gritty. So Daniel, come join us, my friend.
Hey, Zev. Spencer, it's great to see you guys. How's it going?
Living it up, man. Here we go. This is going to be good.
Right. Well, glad to see everyone here on the live, and been checking out some of the comments and questions here. But Spencer, I met you at the CMO Summit as well, and one of the things that I just loved about it was some of the stats that you told me about your findings when you go into a company that may or may not think they know what's happening with their sales, and just the drastic contrast between what they thought was going on and what really mattered once you get down to the data. And Clozd just struck me as really filling that gap that AI just can't when we're talking about data processing, because it doesn't find the data in the CRM. You actually need a person to go out and find that information.
So Daniel, let me ask you this. And you know me, I'm gonna throw you under the bus here. So
always,
brother, how much do you think you know about the reasons why we don't win business? Like, if we're honest here. If you would have guessed, what's the percentage of accuracy why people don't do business with us?
So if you had asked me that question years ago when, I first got in the game, I would tell you I know the exact reason, right? We didn't give them a good discount, or, we didn't explain this, or, we should have added more value here. But after talking with Spencer and after nearly a decade in the space, I have no clue. Like, there's a huge gap. If I did know what made or break would make or break the sale, I would have made the sale. But the fact that I didn't shows that I did not understand what was lacking in that equation. And I think it's self-evident that that's the case with a lot of reps. They want to think up a reason or come up with a reason or even get a reason from a prospect that didn't close. But very often that prospect wasn't being honest. They were giving you a polite no and saying the easiest, least friction reason that they could to get out of that sales conversation when there was something deeper that is the real driver.
And here's a funny thing for you guys to think about. Let's say I did give you a reason and it was generally directionally right. Like, there were issues with the product. What do you do with that? It came down to price. Like, what do you do with that as a company? If I tell the rep, like, we liked you guys, but the price just wasn't there. Okay, everybody, let's discount our prices and change them. What we find is when you actually go engage the buyers, particularly on bigger deals, or if you design and engage with them correctly through whatever mechanism, you can get the underlying reasons. One of the things that is always shocking to me is most of the time when someone says price, when you double click with them, what do you mean by that? It actually isn't the dollar amount. It is what was included in it. I had budget for this amount, but your competitor was offering me 5 extra things within the package that they offered. So it made it easier to go with them. I was going to get more for my dollars. Or it's something like, it was actually less expensive than what I was expecting to spend, but because of the way your pricing model works, I was concerned that a year from now it was going to jump so high that it was going to break the bank. So a lot of times that surface level thing that the rep might get still isn't enough for you to know what to do. And so that's why there's value in going to the buyer. But again, it also depends on the nature of the deal. There's some companies sell really transactional, simple things, and it's a 2 conversation close over with a credit card over the phone. Some companies, we have clients that sell $15 million deals that take 2 years in the sales cycle and $2 million of cost just to chase the deal. So you start to think like the way I should engage those is a little bit different to get feedback. The simpler one, it would be really awkward to be like, hey, can you spend 30 minutes on the phone with me to tell me about why you didn't buy my $2,000 solution. Like that would be not right. And the other side, hey, I just spent 2 years trying to sell to you. Here's a survey. Will you fill it out? Like they're not going to do like, that's like, what are you talking about? Like, and so there's a Goldilocks kind of conundrum that companies run into of how should I engage people based off of what the deal looks like to make sure that I get the feedback that's appropriate for that type of deal.
I love that. And I always tell my guys this, like service has limits. You can't give the same service for something that, can give us X and something that can give us 100X. It's just, doesn't make any sense. Now, one thing that I really love about what you guys do is you create a conversation between leadership and sales. Okay. And I think salespeople, we're all creatures of habit, right? So when salespeople just get in the habit of just, throwing excuses out there, that's what they're going to do. But then when there's a meaningful conversation, let's say between Daniel and I, and like, Daniel, why is this product not moving the way we want it to move? And then having somebody like you that actually gets the data, now me and Daniel can have a conversation that leads to growth and not hard feelings.
Yes, it removes that barrier, right? Like, so here's a mistake that companies will make oftentimes in doing this, and it's twofold. One, you have to put somebody in charge of win-loss in your organization that is respected and trusted cross-functionally. If you don't do that, you are dead on arrival. Okay, because everyone will think they just turned this into a witch hunt. Like, I'm not going to listen. This is bull crap, and they will choke the process. They won't help upfront, and they will completely undermine what comes out of it. That's the first part. The second part is making sure that whoever goes and collects the data is incredibly unbiased and trusted from that perspective. And that's oftentimes why companies opt to use us as a third party. Our platform, you can actually do the win-loss process yourself on Clozd. So you could license our software and you could run the whole process yourself. Even still, a lot of our clients opt to have our program managers that are like your strategic CSMs do the interviews because they trust that. And it comes to them like an ombudsman, like, hey, this is what I'm hearing, but the key to that is that allows you to, when you start talking about it, to like remove the ego, you just get to the point, right? And if you do it right, if you have the right person in charge up front and sponsoring it, that gets the buy-in across the board, and then the feedback feels like it comes through in a very, let's just try to learn way, then you kind of remove all the excuses and people just have to go, and you can get straight to the action.
Well, and I think this also relates to something that Zeev was talking about, with the way that we sell SEO, right? Not everybody likes, like, I'll put it this way. The audit is not always pretty. In fact, it's very rarely pretty. And I assume same with the reports that you give out all the time, Spencer, where it's not pretty. The reason people aren't buying, and it's not something the rep wants to see, and it's not something that the leaders want to see. But data doesn't lie, and it takes the emotion out of it. And I think that's key in this process is just putting those egos aside and saying, look, we all want to get better. We all want to be the best that we can be, and here's where we're at now. Based on that, how do we move forward?
Yeah, totally. And here's the interesting thing about good win-loss data. Win-loss data is the best win-loss data is qualitative in nature. Okay. Like, I could go out and I could ask every single one of your buyers on a scale from 1 to 10, rate how our sales rep did. On a scale from 1 to 10, rate how you thought our pricing was. On a scale from 1 to 10. And what I would end up is, when I average all of that out, I was a 8.2, and my competitor was in some cases a 7.8 or an 8.4. I can't do anything about that. I don't know what that means, right? That's the weakness of quantitative feedback, is I ask people to translate what's in their mind and heart into a radial button, and then I add it up and aggregate it, and I try to translate that back into what does it mean. Whereas if you just ask somebody, what did you like, what didn't you like, and what did you like about our product, what did you like about our sales experience, what could we have done better,
Yep.
And when they say something, well, tell me more about why you like that. Well, why was that so important to you? And when they say something negative, what would you have expected differently? And you learn those things. You build this really rich data set, but it's a qualitative data set. And this is probably a good way to think about how the rise in generative AI and some of these large language models, things like the ChatGPT evolution, can help companies use this type of unstructured data to understand what's going on. Because to your point, Daniel, being able to, what's interesting is like a lot of times in like a very quant heavy audit, it's like, look, you had this many opportunities and you only got this many. And that's like very blaring in your face. Like this bar is this tall, this bar is this tall.
Yeah.
What's interesting about, go ahead.
Let me add something here, because this is something I've had so many salespeople going through my organizations, and salespeople are the opposite of engineers. Would you guys agree with me?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
I will have an engineer source through data and tell me what he thinks. If I have a salesperson do that, even if they really try, they're just not equipped. So I think AI really brought this, like, everybody used to say big data, big data, big data, and nobody used to do anything with it unless you're like one of the big tech companies. Now we can process this. Now we have a tool that can go through all this data and actually give us something. So I think, you've been doing this for a long time, and you've been doing it before like the crazy boom of AI. But how does AI make your job easier?
Yeah. So think of this. We have clients that are collecting hundreds, even thousands of win-loss review feedback data points, conversations throughout a year, right? So because we have, I'll give you an example. We have clients that have 60,000 sales opportunities go through their pipeline in a year, and they do a combination of interviews, hundreds of interviews, hundreds of video-based asynchronous interviews. So think like I send you a question prompt on your phone and you can respond right back on your phone, and that generates a qualitative conversation. And then I have more traditional basic surveys. That's a mountain of data. Now, here's the challenge. It's qualitative in nature. And when you have thousands of conversations, reading through them is a feat in and of itself, reading through every single one, but also figuring out how to tie them together and identify the themes and summarize them is also a feat. So for years now at Clozd, we've been from the get-go building tools to tag and understand what's happening in the conversation so that you can turn the qualitative data into a quantitative data set. So you can say, pricing model comes up over and over and over, and it tends to be really positive. It's something that people like about you guys. And here's all the quotes that evidence that. Now, what's interesting is as data sets become so big, being able to go back and read through and make sense of it's tough. So that's why these LLMs and generative AI models, to be able to understand the unstructured data. I have metadata from that are attached to these sales opportunities that is quantitative in nature, and I have all this qualitative feedback. Help me understand what's happening. And that's honestly one of the coolest things that we're building right now. We've started using it. Last year, we started using some of these tools to help us summarize individual like conversations, right? I have a 30-minute conversation with you, turn it into 2 paragraphs so that our clients can get that in a more trusted way. We've built technology to help you actually understand the sentiment of what the conversation is. So you and I talk, and being able to go through and say, as Zeev and Spencer were talking, Zeev seemed like, here's an example where pricing seemed to be negative. Here's an example where the product seemed to be strong. Here's an example where the sales rep was doing a great job, or maybe not so. And being able to do that. Now, what's really cool is as clients build, if you have 5 interviews, I don't need to have some crazy chat GPT functionality on top of it. But if you have 200 and you think of the questions you can start to ask, and this is what's really cool. Win-loss is like a prism, right? If I'm your product leader, I don't actually really care about how sales rep X did on whatever deal. I want to know what I need to build in the product. If I'm your sales leader, I want to know what we need to do to improve our sales training. I want to know how we beat certain competitors, like what traps should we be setting, all of those things. I want to know what's missing from the product so I can go get the product team to build it. I want to know how people are responding to our pricing. What's really cool is the next generation of this is going to be allowing companies to use like a chat GPT and ask questions.
So let me interject here for a second,
Yeah.
because we do a lot of that. Now, companies need to be careful, okay? Because when you put stuff onto ChatGPT, ChatGPT trains on that knowledge. That knowledge basically reframes for being your IP.
Yes.
Now, so that is something we always like when we do stuff with companies that really have information that we don't want to get to the wrong hands. We build their own knowledge bases, we secure them. You can
Yes.
use some features from the things that are out there, but be
Yes.
very careful to put everything that you've worked on for years, put all your IP just into a database that you have no control over, and that database can use your data to create other things. So I want
100%.
companies to know, like, if you want to use AI, you should, and you need to learn how. There are certain things that an OpenAI is amazing for. There's certain things that ChatGPT 3, 4, 5, all these things are great. There are certain things that you are not, you should not put into just a public knowledge base. You should put it secured.
Yeah, you need to go get their enterprise level license or use a software like ours that's an enterprise level license where the data stays contained and you can use their technology to help you summarize it, but you are not adding your data set into their data set so that other people can do it.
And Spencer, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, all of that being said, if you have a decent data set and you can use those tools and you feel comfortable with it, it eliminates what used to take people a week or 2 weeks of analysis to go understand. You can understand it in seconds. And the key becomes you, as a person trying to understand the data, being very, very good at asking questions of the data that are clear questions and the right prompts. I actually think what's going to happen over time, guys, is it's going to be more about, okay, I have this data set that's proprietary to me, that's contained. It's not going to go out into the masses and not going to be able to be used by other people. But where technologies like Clozd are going to be able to help is by making sure that you think really clearly about the prompts you want to ask of the data so that you get the most out of it. Like, these are the top 5 prompts you should ask about pricing. Now, you can ask other stuff besides that, but these are probably the top 5 that you should think about. And you can ask follow-on questions, but start here. Doing some of that to help people think about how they probe into the unstructured data will be useful. And the other thing that I would tell you is watch out and make sure because especially stuff like win-loss data can be weaponized in an organization, right? You can,
100%.
which sales reps are the worst sales reps? You have some junior sales rep somewhere saying, who are the worst sales reps at our company, and it comes up with a list and tells you why they're the worst sales reps. Well, that's not going to be great, right? They're going to go post that on Slack somewhere, and you're going to have tons of you can totally see this happening, right? Like, so there's, you want to put some bounds on it and maybe think about who can use what.
This is interesting because we see similar things within AI, and what you're doing is interesting. So you started Clozd 7-8 years ago, and you started doing that without AI. So you got a process that works. You understand what you do. Now AI makes you 100x, or you can do so many things.
Yeah.
But AI only works on a process you understand how to do. I've been doing SEO for 20 years. We do so much SEO for so many companies. I know so much about SEO that took me all these years to learn. There used to be a process that we did, like a research process that would take 80 hours. So like 20 hours from this team, 20 hours from this team, 20 hours from this team, 20 hours from this team. We knew exactly the process, but it took 80 hours. 80 hours, if you're calculating it as $200 an hour, it's money, right? Like, it's money that you're spending. Now we build an AI that basically works on all the processes that we've been doing and takes that 80-hour process, condenses it into 60 seconds. Okay. And we get the same thing because we know how it works. We made it work without AI. Now we just make it work with AI because we know the process. So everybody's out there that's listening. AI is a big keyword, and we do a lot with AI. You can reach out to us. We'll help you. But if you can't do it without AI, you're not going to be able to do it with AI. Now, AI can make you scale. AI can make you more efficient. But if you don't know what you're doing, putting AI on it will not help you.
Yeah, it's not, AI is not handing a baton and letting go of it.
And something interesting about, oh, sorry, Spencer, I keep interrupting you. No, go ahead and finish.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I was going to say an interesting thing about AI is it's literally incapable of solving new problems. If a problem hasn't already been solved, AI cannot solve it. And so just by its very nature, I think a lot of people think, oh, AI can create stuff. Yes, it could create art and images based on art and images that have already been generated. It can't actually make original art, even if there is no other image that exists like it. It's all based on what it's been learned. It can't create anything new or solve new problems. It can just solve old ones that have already been solved.
So let me interject for a second because this is interesting. So you guys know that AI hallucinates, right?
Yep.
That to me is actually the intelligence of AI. Okay. Because all the rest is copy paste, right? Like, yeah, you got to search. Yeah, you got to, but it's a copy paste. The hallucination is truly the AI trying to create as a human. Now, 99% of the time, it's crap and it's nothing you can use. But everybody's mad with AI that it hallucinates. And I'm like, why are you mad? That's intelligence. We all invent, imagine, hallucinate. And when we want to build this, we can't just build, a script kiddie, right? Something that just goes and scribes things. So it's not in the level, and it will get there, Daniel, as more data goes through. But AI always hallucinates because AI is trying to create new things. It's not good at it yet, but it's trying. So hopefully that makes sense. So guys, we've been here for 40 minutes and this has been so fast. I'm sure everybody would like to know how to reach out to you, Spencer, how to reach out to Clozd. Why don't you share with us what's the best way to reach out to you, maybe on some of your team members, what you guys do. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't know. You may have a QR code that you could pull up, Zeev. If not, that's fine. I can just give people the basic info. So Clozd, CLOZD.com is the name of our company. If you're interested in learning more about us, you can obviously go to our website to learn. There's a lot there. Fill out a form. We have a lot of content that's really valuable. If win-loss is still a pretty relatively new process that a lot of companies are employing. Okay. So if you're interested in just learning about how this works, we have some really good content like some of this content about case studies, about the state of win-loss, what different companies are doing, where they're kind of at. You're welcome. Download that stuff. It can be really useful to you, and you can learn kind of best practices where people are at today.
And let me share some of the big companies that you guys help. So as you guys see, Clozd really knows what they're doing. They work with giant like Salesforce and T-Mobile and all the other big names that you see on there. How do we reach out to you, Spencer?
Yeah. Best way to reach out to me is just directly. You can hit me up, Spencer@clozd.com, SPENCER@CLOZD.com. I do a lot of webinars like this, and it's actually my favorite thing is just when someone's like, hey, I've been trying to do something like this. Can we talk? And I'm happy to hear and chat with folks about it, because it's like, obviously this is like my life's work. We train our sales team based off of our win-loss feedback to be as consultative as possible, right? Because it's a new practice. Most companies are kind of training willing this thing, right? They're like, wait, okay, teach me about it. And so we can give you lots of resources, help you do it. For a lot of clients that are trying, or prospects that are thinking about this, we'll even do like a free interview or two for you, so you can see what the output looks like and really test it to make sure that it's appropriate for your company.
Awesome. So everybody, please reach out to Spencer, email Spencer, go to Clozd. You can reach out to Daniel and me on LinkedIn. We almost live on this platform. If anybody's interested in more questions, you can send it directly to Spencer or to us, and we'll get them answered. Spencer, this was fun, and I love what you guys do. Everybody, please reach out to Spencer. It's really, really worth it. Everybody on LinkedIn, thank you for coming in. We'll see you guys next week. And Spencer, last words.
Thanks, guys. You guys are great. Appreciate it. This is awesome.
Appreciate you.
We appreciate